So I am here with Chris Hayes. Chris owns Hayes Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. I think what's interesting about the topic and the conversation we're going to have today is that you were not our client. You were not a client of SF&P. You did a transaction, right? You weren't our client. And I don't say that in a bad way. As a matter of fact, anytime I'm talking to anybody, listen, obviously I'm disappointed if somebody isn't our client because I think we're the best. You know, we've now done about 375 transactions and some of the biggest names in our space have used us. But as long as you're getting some representation is better than, well, sometimes better than none. Yeah, let me say that, nicely. But listen, but we met after your transaction, right? You know, I'm in Arizona all the time. That's where you're at. We obviously played a bunch of golf, developed a friendship. And we've been thrilled because over the years, you've been, directing some of your friends that are in the space over to us. And you know what their outcomes have been. So, obviously, we're grateful for the relationship we've developed with you. Obviously, not thrilled that you were not our client because I think we could have done, a whole lot better, which would have been wonderful. But that's neither here nor there. That's in the past. So why don't you do me a favor for starters? Just tell us about Chris Hayes, how you got into the space. Tell us about how you went out and developed your company and all that other good fun stuff.
So we can go back to high school. I mean, back in, junior year of high school, I left high school. 6 months after that, my dad was terminally ill with cancer and basically took care of him for 3 years.
Right. You were a football guy, right? You were getting a football scholarship to go play ball, right?
Wasn't playing football scholarship, but, it was fun. Played a lot of basketball, a lot of football.
Okay.
So I think in, a couple of years after taking care of him, he ended up passing and we buried him in Illinois and came back. And then that's kind of how I got in business. I just answered an ad, got in the business at $9 an hour, which is a lot different than today. We started our business in 2001, October 1st. So right after September 11th.
Oh, wow.
Not a great time to start a business. A year after that, we ended up having a subcontractor was on a building and fell through the building at 25 feet and basically passed away. So, my business probably shouldn't have made it from day one, but worked hard, worked a lot of hours. My wife was probably the reason that we are as successful as we were. And just like anybody, I was an employee that started a business.
Yep.
Yeah, the hard way. So learned a lot of things. Didn't really learn about business until probably the last 4 years. The business became pretty successful after we got out of the new construction industry. You always think it's a good idea to build new big houses and, oh, look what I did, but there's no money in it. So we had a great business towards the end of the career. It made a lot of money. It was 18 to 26% net profit, depending on the season. And I think a lot of contractors get comfortable. Sure. They get tired of the daily grind. So somebody calls you, you get the flood of, oh, let me sell your business, let me sell your business. You answer one of them, you sit down and you start discussing it. The day-to-day of running a business, you think is worse than it actually is. Because the outside of it, when you're out of it, looking back, you're going, hey, life wasn't that bad.
Right.
So I met with a friend of a friend. We sat down and looked at the numbers and didn't understand equity, of course. And, you work as hard as you do for what you get. You want to know. My recommendation is look into the equity piece. It's a place for you to grow your business without your own money. Sure. Bring on partners that can help you run your business. And the end of the result is find the right partner.
And what you mean by that is, I'm just gonna expand on that for a second, right? You and I know what we're talking about. For anybody else that doesn't, what Chris is saying is, listen, when you sell your business or partner up with private equity group, they're going to ask for a reinvestment piece, which is called the equity roll. So to keep the numbers easy, let's say your business has an enterprise value of $10 million. Okay. Most private equity companies want you to reinvest about $2 million of that. So when you close your deal, you get a check for 8 million in a sense, or a wire for 8 million. And the other additional 2, which makes it to the 10 million, gets reinvested into the portfolio. You're actually buying shares, quote unquote, of stock in the portfolio at a certain value. As that portfolio grows, right, you've got your investment piece there. You want that portfolio to do good because when they sell the portfolio, you're going to get paid again. That's what we're talking about. So that's what's called that second bite of the apple. And there are there's a lot of buyers out there that want to buy you, give you a hug, and you're out. They want to do a lot of things, but allow you to have equity because they realize that's a really big piece for them. Because if they grow that portfolio big enough, right, you come in with a business that is an EBITDA of $1 million or $2 on 10 million, just to keep everything simple. When that portfolio is at 200 million, what do you think the EBITDA is on that? Possibly 25, 30 million. What do you think a 25 to $30 million EBITDA company trades for?
Huge.
Right. So you get to share in that upside, but if they don't give you any of that, you share in none of it. And that's what we're talking about.
And Brian, let's go back, because once you sell your business or you don't own it, it's amazing how fast you can grow your business. You're not really playing with your money. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, we went from when we sold, we were listed at about 8 million, probably about a 20% EBITDA. The following year, I think we went to, I would just say, it's been a while, so give me a break here. I think we went to about 10 million with about an 18% of EBITDA. We grew, we were adding people. The following year, so I sold in 2020, 21, I think the business ended up clearing about $1.8 million in net profit. The following year, I think we did about 14 million, and it cleared over 2.6 million.
Wow.
That is with the corporate insurance added in too. So I would say if we didn't have all the mumbo jumbo in that, we would have probably been close to $3 million. So my business probably would have sold for 7 times more. I mean, there's a friend of mine that I referred to you. We ran neck and neck on our books. We were about $2.5 million more than he was a year because of plumbing. You know, the plumbing margins are pretty significantly bigger than the HVAC. And I'm pretty positive that he got about 7 times more than I did. So my recommendation is know the right people, have the right broker, and understand your business before you sell it.
You bring up an interesting point about bringing in the partner, right? And we talk about, at least I do, and you're right. Listen, you built your business. If you look back at your timeline, right? 2001, and you partnered up in 2018. Is that correct?
I think I had a partner in.
I'm saying you did your PE deal 2018 or
no?
19?
I did. I sold in 2020. So
Okay,
I sold about a year before the things really started getting crazy.
But my point is, you were at this for 19 years, right?
Yes.
Kudos to you for growing it from nothing, right? With all the hiccups in the equation for starters, about 19 years of getting after it. And then, listen, your mindset can only take you, so far, right? And then all of a sudden, you got to bring somebody else in with a fresh set of eyes that says, by the way, if you just do this, this, and this business, but you're so caught up, right, in the day-to-day with the blinders on of quote unquote knowing what you have to do. And I've seen it, by the way. You're not the only one who said that. God, when I brought the partner in, right, or when I sold my business, it was amazing how quickly it grew. Your emotion is now out of the equation on every decision, right?
It is.
For money. Hey, we're bringing in this marketing idea, Chris. What do you think about this marketing idea? And you're like, well, it's not my money to think about it anymore. Yeah, that looks good. Let's try it. Right? Like
yeah, you do push the marketing, you do that stuff. I mean, it's crazy how faster it goes.
Right. Plus, they're going to get you economies of scale. So you're going to get your equipment costs are going to get reduced, right? All those insurance costs should come down. If you need talent, a lot of these guys are able to find you talent. But to all of it, you're bringing in a partner. So if you haven't spoken to, my whole thing when I talk to anybody is, number one, if you haven't gotten multiple offers for your business, you don't know what your business is truly worth, right? I think we could agree on that. 2,
yes.
If you haven't spoken to enough people, you don't really know how to compare them against each other for what your next step is going to look like. Because when you look at the potential private equity partners across the spectrum, on one end is what we call the ivory tower. 3 guys that have money. They want to buy these businesses, do your thing. We'll talk to you once a month, just send your financials over. You're not getting a whole lot of support. And that's fine for some people. To the other end of the spectrum, which is, hey, here's a 1-800 number. Here's 40 extensions. If you need cars, you dial extension 22. If you need marketing help, you dial 27. and there's multiple meetings throughout the course of the month, and they want to help you grow people within your organization. They're not just trying to scalp, they're trying to make the money. They're trying to grow something along with you. But I'll shut up there because you've been through it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it goes quick, and it's really mind blowing. The biggest thing that I think changed in 2020 is a lot of the contractors started talking to each other.
Yes.
They started sharing secrets. And I think that's made it very successful for a lot of these guys. I mean, 2019 to 2020, everybody was kind of closed book before 2020. And then 2020, all these social media groups popped up and everybody started talking and everybody started realizing different tricks of the business. And the business really changed.
Yeah.
And it changed for the better for a lot of people. So, I mean, it's made multi-million dollars for lots of people.
Yeah, there was a free flow of information. People were talking about multiples openly, right?
Yep.
Wasn't this secret thing? Nobody's telling anybody. By the way, most people still lie about what they got anyhow. But
yes,
you have a frame
just
of
like everybody's business is successful, right?
Everybody's business is 25 million and yeah, the whole thing. And we have a 35% net, and then the numbers come in and we start having conversations about where things are
going. It's amazing. I mean, I went to 3 classes. And the first day I walked into the guy's class, he had like, if this isn't good, I'm going bear hunting. Right. And the funny thing is I was there the next day. And for the next 2 years, I sat in that class learning about a P&L. And as soon as you learn about your P&L, it's amazing how things can change.
Well, you're focused, right? You're focused on the business.
Yep. Yep. And I think a lot of us, that have been in it 20 years, 22 years, I know there's a lot of guys out doing it in 5 years, which is amazing because I've been through the struggles of it, and God bless them for doing it. But it's amazing how a business goes from A to B very quickly when you get back into it. So,
yep. Well, there's different, again, to credit to you, when you started in on this, right? I mean, were you spending on PPC and Facebook marketing? Didn't exist.
No, I was the guy that had so I started my business with $1,500. It was my last paycheck. Came home one day, told my wife, I said, let's start a business. And she said, okay. We started that business and we pulled out a Yellow Page ad, just like everybody else did back then. So, Yellow Pages were key.
Yeah.
And there was nights that my wife was feeding kids and answering phones. And, I'd come home, take a shower, eat some dinner, and go to bed. And she'd wake me up at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, we're going to call you. You want to go do it? Of course we need to do it. We need the money.
Right.
So that was a lot of it. I built the business a lot different than most people. I built the business as, hey, let's get the customers. Let's create the happy customers, and then we'll put the employees on. So I did everything myself for the first 6 years with, I gave away all my scrap. Those guys came over, they helped me get the units in the attic. It was the hard way. Wasn't the smart way, but we did what we did, and we didn't know what we didn't know.
Well, listen, it also builds character and work ethic. So, I mean, listen, there's a lot of owners out there, and this is not enough on them. They're business people. They don't know how to fix HVAC systems. They know how to run businesses.
Yeah.
Right. So you have different ways of approaching the problem in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, there was a great comment that Ken put out this year, and one of the things, and it talked about when he first sold his first business. He sold it for $7 million. And he said, pay attention to what you're doing. Get your heart in there. Mm-hmm. I don't know exact words, but I mean, it spoke to me. So it's crazy how times have changed.
They have, and you've got a more sophisticated owner now, right? Because of all the information that's available. They're not doing things that their parents did and their parents did, the other generations did, right? So it's more sophisticated. The amount of training and information available is so vast, and you can become part of really how many different groups are there on Facebook that offer up free information?
There's probably 10
plus, right?
In our industry.
And then there's private coaching, and then there's the affinity groups, and there's all these different places to be able to join to learn. And you almost want to say to somebody who hasn't done it, shame on you. There's so much free information available. If you haven't figured some of these things out yet, how committed are you to your growth and your success? Because it's there.
Well, I think we were laughing the other day playing golf about everybody's a coach or a consultant now.
Oh yeah, right. Everybody's figured it out. You just have to choose the one that matches your personality, right? Either matches your personality, you say, God, I'm over here. I don't want anybody else like me. I need somebody who's other end of the spectrum, show me something differently, or show me how to view my business differently through a different set of eyes, because that could be very beneficial. So you go into your process, right? You've got a broker, you get your deal done. You know, obviously I've known you for years. You weren't thrilled. There were some things that obviously could have happened. And when you take a look at your process per se, right now, you and I had enough conversations. You know what a process looks like. If you could redo something in your process, what would it have been?
So I think it was the final hour. I was in bed the night before, and they wanted me to cover warranty for 5 years. And I didn't sleep that night. And I woke up the next morning, got on the phone with the attorney, and basically just said, look, I'm not doing this. And I basically told him I'm out. And wish I would have followed that line, because I mean, I had a successful business. The business was doing very well. We had a great reputation. We grew and we were profitable. And I will tell you that business today, if it was still being ran, it's doing very well because of the customer base that we have. But I would say it would have probably netted about $3 million a year. Wow. It's amazing how hard you work and get it to where it is. But back to that final hour, I would have pulled out. The biggest thing for people to know is they want you more than you want them. And if you don't understand things, ask questions. Mm-hmm. Have a great broker like SFMP. I mean, understand all that stuff. I know we referred you over to a buddy of mine that we called each other therapy. So we were on the phone every day as therapists. And that's what my wife calls it. So we talk every day, and we talk numbers, and we talk how things are going. And it was just like a counseling session back and forth. So my recommendation is, if you're in business, you've been in business, and you got a big business or a small business, find somebody to get on the phone with and talk to every day, because it does help. Great. And be open. If you are talking to that person and you were thinking about selling a business, run that by that same person. I didn't do that. That's the end of the goal, is to get as much money for the business that you've built and go on from there and live life. I'm retired. I'm 47 years old. There may be a day I do it again. I don't know, but in retirement's enjoyable right now.
Play a lot of golf. I know how much golf you're playing, since I played with you the other week in beach. By 1 time out of 20. But anyhow, I agree with a lot what you said. One of the things that I will add to it is this: you have to have multiple conversations with multiple potential partners or buyers, right? And you have to create that leverage point. When you see multiple offers come in, it gives you the peace of mind knowing, okay, here's where the market's at. Do you know what I mean? Like again, to simplify it, it's like selling a house, right? Your broker brings one person into the house and says, boom, here's your number. You're like, okay, I guess. But if you had 3 offers or 4 offers or 5 offers, and they're all within a range, you're pretty comfortable saying, okay, here's where the market is at. Like, that's a huge one. Off of what you said, again, do deals go sideways? They go sideways. But I find with our clients, because it's a process, and the feet are never getting pushed to the fire, because we have enough people for them to be able to have conversations with. Like, it's a process. In the beginning, we try and lay it out so they see what it looks like. I don't want to give too much detail, because I don't want them getting all crazy. It's day 1 of the next 150 days that we're going to be doing this together to get them to the promised land. But every week or 2 weeks adds on to something. Here's another piece. It's we prepare them for what's going to happen next, so they don't get crazy. And that's one of the reasons why we've been so successful, is during diligence, they understand there's been no stone left unturned. We've talked to enough people. We've pushed on the numbers as much as we can. And again, we're going to be at the top end of where things are at. There's a good, comforting feeling. And it's the reason why when the deal is done, we get a lot of folks who call us back and say, hey, I got friends that want to do business. Can we have them call you? You did so well by us. And obviously the testimonials and the people we've done deals for. But I think why this became so interesting for you and I to have the conversation is you went about it a different way, right? And you now know, as you've been past it, looking back in hindsight, there is a better way to do it, right? That could have been better for you. And what I appreciate is, right, your vulnerability to be able to have this conversation and say, hey, there's another way that this could have been done. It could have been better. And you really, if you're contemplating selling your business, you should really be thinking through this a lot deeper and should have conversations on a much higher level so that there is no confusion, right? If there is confusion, you should stop what's going on and say, hey, we need to have a conversation. I've got X number of questions that need to be answered so I can feel comfortable moving on with the process, or stopping it. By the way, there's nothing wrong with stopping a process. There's
Just realize
realize
you only have one chance of selling a business.
Correct.
You have one.
Yep.
Once you do it, it's over.
Yep. When you get
and you know, go back to you get into the process and you get the offers and you think this is the stressful time. Well, slow down, because then due diligence comes, and that's when the stress really sets in. I didn't have to deal with that. My wife did all that. So, you know, her life was very stressful.
Right.
She made it all happen. So I thank her for everything that she did.
Of course. No, listen, but behind every successful man, right, is an incredibly, in a lot of scenarios, a very incredibly supportive woman who's helping to, drive things.
Yes.
With what you said, again, our president and CEO, Fred Silverstein, he's been doing deals mid to late 90s. There's a process. And part of that process is, once you're a client of ours, there's a big checklist of information. Our clients kind of, I don't want to say freak out, like, oh my God, there's so much to do. But when all the work is front loaded, it makes everything else easier from that point in. So here's this big checklist I need to get over, right, Chris? Because we're going to do an audit. I've got X number of CPAs on staff. They're going to audit through the information. They're going to get on with the owner and whoever the financial controller is of the business, whether it be the wife, a CFO, a CPA, a bookkeeper, whatever that looks like, and go through all these open issues so that when we have our follow-up conversation before we go to market, here is your EBITDA. As of, March 2023, here is EBITDA. Understand what I said. As of March 2023, here's your EBITDA. Because guess what? When April closes out, you have a new EBITDA number, right?
That's very important, because when we went to market, we went up 2019.
Right.
My broker that was representing me was not increasing the EBITDA every month, even though we were growing. I think, oh Lord, we started this process. January was a slow month. February was a pretty good month. The following month was, I think, our first $1 million month in business. Wow. And from there on, it just went to $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.5 million. I think before I left, which was August of last year, I think I called it a $2 million month. We were a little shy, probably about 100 grand, but for me, that was good enough. So, June, and that year was, that COVID year was a boom for everybody. Everybody was home. Everybody heard the toilet running. Everybody heard the AC clanking. This room was hot. So if you weren't making money in that COVID century, I don't know what to tell you.
It's very funny you bring that up. So this year I've had a number of conversations, right? And owners are asking me like, well, we're not sure if we want to do a transaction now. We want to wait for the market to come back. I want to wait for the market I'm like, come back to what? Well, where was last year? I'm like, where was last year or the year before? I said, do you understand why it got to that place last year and the year before? Right? I mean, for what you just said, COVID put, listen, our businesses were always good. Private equity always had an interest in them, but I'm going to tell you a funny story. And actually, I'm going to make a recording of it. I'm going to get interviewed sometime, I think this week or next week, talking about this as well. But when I started with Fred Silverstein, by the way, been one of my best friends since I moved to Florida. I was 14. So I've known Fred 38 years now. Wow. I'm getting old. Anyhow. So our office had a dry erase board. This is ended 2016, beginning of 2017. There were 15 buyers on that list. 15. That's it. 12 to 15. And they all didn't, and again, they were buying, some new construction, give me a mix of commercial, residential. Like that was it. When we took a deal to market, we were hoping that they liked the business. Like in a nice way, there just weren't a lot of buyers. We started introducing these deals to private equity. I'm not going to take credit and say, hey, we brought all the private equity in, but I do know that when I started with Fred, we grabbed the private equity list and we started going through it and we started showing everybody that did deals in the middle market, these transactions. Fast forward going into COVID, right? Sure, some more people had started to enter the space after COVID. When we took a deal to market, we would get 65 or 70 plus non-disclosure agreements signed from people who wanted to see a transaction. Could you imagine if you had 65 to 70 NDAs signed on your business? You realize you're going to get a bidding war at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
And somebody's going to come over the top to pay you top end of the range for where things are at. So my point to this is people are saying, well, I'm going to wait for this market to come back. You had the absolute perfect storm to get these businesses to all-time highs, right? You guys are moving, the businesses were going up and to the right, essential services, people had no idea when they were going to go back to work. So they were spending time in their home, like you said, changing out AC systems, all the plumbing, all these little home improvement things that they wanted to get done. And private equity ran out of place. I don't say ran out. The number of places they invested, that world shrunk. They've got investor money. They have to deploy the capital. All of a sudden, you had a lot of people that entered our space. Now, have some of them moved out of our space as the world opened back up again? Yes. Have multiples come down? Yes. Has the cost of money gone up? Yes. So I don't know when it comes back, but if you're telling me you're going to wait, if next year, if it doesn't come back and it shifts down again, the 10x you could have gotten last year, and again, generalizing numbers, so don't hold me to this, the 10x you could have gotten last year, which has now become 8.5 to 9, which by the way, is still just off of the all-time highs, right? Becomes what next year? If it goes down to 7 to 7.5, where it started to go to, you're going to want to hang yourself because you didn't get a deal done. So I don't know. The way I see it is, if you did a deal today, even if you didn't get paid the all-time highs and the marketplace comes back, well, you're invested in the equity roll. So you're going to make money on your second bite anyhow, right? And if the market goes down, you've been paid, you've got a windfall. You're sitting on capital to be able to, money is made not during great times, it's more during shit times. So if the market goes down for the next year or two across the board, how many real estate opportunities are going to be there? How many other opportunities are going to be there that you now have the war chest for? And the last thing I'll say on this, and trust me, I'm done with my long-winded soliloquy here. When you take a look at some of the biggest names in our space, Dave Geiger, Ken Goodrich, Kenny Haynes, right? Leland, Wyatt, these guys are on their next, they've already did their initial deal years and years ago. They're on their third bite of the apple or their fourth bite of the apple. Leland has flipped financial sponsors already with Service Champions, right? I mean, you take a look, Geiger's done the same thing. They're on bites number 3. The biggest names in our space are 3-4 steps already ahead of you. And you're contemplating whether this is a good time for you to sell a business. Like, I'm going to say it's past you already, but that window is starting to close.
Well, and let's go back. I mean, a lot of these guys that are on their second and third, they're getting more money than they did their first time. So
100%. Well, I missed this and I didn't top out on my multiple or whatever, but your share price you got in with your portfolio was lower. And as the portfolio grows over the next year or two, you could pick up another 3, 4, 5x on your equity roll. Okay. So when you take, again, to break the numbers down, you sold your business for 10 million, you've got 2 that got reinvested, you got 8 at close, right? 10 minus 2 is 8, the 2 is reinvested. If that 2 goes to 6 or 8 and the portfolio sells and you have the opportunity to reinvest that 8 or a portion of that 8, and it does it again, the business that you sold for 10 million could pull you back over $20 million. And by the way, the stress is off your plate at that point in time. Right.
Well, and I've had a lot of conversations with the guys that are, and I've asked them, I said, hey, your second roll, are you going to invest on a third time? And a lot of them are saying, well, I don't know. And for me personally, you're playing with house money. Why wouldn't you? It's a great investment.
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, great investment.
You don't have to do that.
Brian, there's one other thing. I mean, it's funny that you bring up Fred's name because there was a guy, as I was going through my due diligence and I was already in the contract, there was a guy that told me, hey, you can call this guy. He got me, 3 times more than I thought I was going to get. And it came out that it was Fred. And that's one regret. I wish I would have, picked up the phone. My recommendation to people is interview everybody. Yep. If somebody refers you to somebody, pick up the phone and call them. It'll be the best thing that you ever did. The other thing is, my recommendation is I've learned a lot of things after the sale. There's a book out there on Amazon Prime. It's called The Household Endowment Model. It goes through, building your business, getting your business ready for sale. When you start your business, you should be able to have the end model of your business ready to go to market. And so it prepares you.
And you actually have a buddy who you've introduced me to, or I've had some pretty good conversations with, Vince. And I'm forgetting Vince's name off the top of my head.
Vince Annable, it's his book.
Right. That was the one. So what's interesting with Vince is, a lot of owners say, hey, the tax implications are the reason why I don't want to do a deal and so on and so forth. And hey, Vince has a way through trusts and what have you, again, above my pay grade, too sophisticated for me. but they've done it for a lot of people, and that mitigates a lot of the tax risk coming out of getting.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, my recommendation is there's an audible book, just listen to it. If nothing else, listen to it, because there's some great information and opportunity zones and different things, buying your buildings, where you put your buildings. Go into that book and look at it, because it's knowledge.
What I want to do, and I agree with you, normally, when I do these conversations, I'm like, hey, Brian Cohen, here's my cell phone number, call me, yada, yada. And a lot of people call me, and I love the conversations. They should call, don't call me, call you first.
Right? Feel free. Feel free.
So Chris, if I wanted to get in touch with you, don't call me, by the way. Yeah, listen, you can call me. Everybody has my information. I'm here. Let me. But listen, Chris, you've been through it, right? And I know that you've been absolutely incredible with your time, because I know plenty of people have contacted you before to ask you about all these things. But if you're listening to this, call Chris. Ask him, Chris, if I'm calling you, what number? Where am I reaching at?
The phone number for me is 602-620-4444. I mean, my thing now is, if you need 5 minutes of my time, I'm more than willing to give it to you, because you got one chance of doing this, and make sure you do it.
Yep. And by the way, if you like what Chris has to say and you're in Arizona, he loves to play golf.
Come on, let's go play golf. Reach out to as many people, talk to as many people, and just remember, it's your last and only chance to do this. I don't think that, pay attention to what you're doing. Get your head back in your business. Take as much money and put it at the bottom line, because every dollar is worth 7 to 15. So, if you take $1,000 in a cash receipt, what's that cost you? Just remember that.
Appreciate it.
Call myself or call Brian. Get a hold of the right people in the business. Brian and Fred, I think they have a great model, and they're the ones that need to represent you.
I appreciate that. Listen, we have in our queue, we have a laundry list, obviously, of references. And in that list are some of the best names in our space. That we're happy to have a conversation with what the process looked like as well. But your rawness, your vulnerability here is greatly appreciated. The reality is this, people are going to listen to this, and they're going to make a decision as a business owner, right? And this is what I find most interesting. So many people are laying out the advice. Either you check your ego at the door, open your ears and listen to what somebody has to say, and that's going to benefit you greatly, or you put your blinders on and your earmuffs on and keep running into a wall without a helmet on, right? I know which is the easier way. And sometimes it's hard to sit back and listen, man. There's that feeling in your stomach, you want to hang yourself, because you're like, holy shit, I should have been listening to this all along. But would you rather learn all these things after the fact, or be able to affect some change with it before you go ahead and do anything? That's how I see it.